I was very fortunate to go to a university where we take pride in preparation. They prepared me for 3 long years. I owe that to them. I was just a big guy relying on my size in high school. They molded me into something different. That, of course, Amarius Mims, future first round draft pick in the NFL draft later this spring. Here's some shots of him when he was at Bleckley County, literally head and shoulders above everybody else. These are not small people that are around him. That's an adult, the referee. You can see he's literally head and shoulders above everybody else. So Amarius was a good high school football player. It was hard to know for sure just how good because of him being so raw, but it didn't take long until we got to see the big man shine. This is actually my favorite picture of Amarius Mims. Dylan Weber took this shot in the corner of the end zone after one of Georgia's many touchdowns in the national championship game against TCU. Amarius Mims is a great example of taking someone who was raw and developing them into what should be a first round draft pick. Why is Amarius Mims going as a first round draft pick? I can show you in one image. This guy has no chance of rushing the passer against him. No chance. None. And the kick step, it's all there. You're simply not getting around him because his limbs are so long. Now, one thing that Amarius had to deal with this year, and this is during the Carolina game, was the injuries. He had the tightrope injury, just like tightrope surgery, just like Brock Bowers did. Imagine two of your first round draft pick players going out for the same injury in the same season. Here he is celebrating with Kendall Milton after a touchdown for the Dogs with Darnell right behind him. Georgia was a force of nature in 2022, and here's Kendall again against Auburn earlier that year. Super sunny day in Athens that day. That's clear. I'm not surprised that Marius has developed into what he is now. You've had he didn't play a lot in 2021. He played a lot in 2022. He only started a few games this past season because of the injury. You've got a prospect on your hands who could be a franchise left tackle and be there for a while. When you went to watch him at Bleckley County, that's what jumped out was the sheer size. There's just not a lot of people that I can remember. I watched Broderick Jones, Andrew Thomas, guys like that who were also first round guys. They were not obviously physically going to be first round guys. There was a pretty good shot. But it wasn't as obvious as Amarius Mims. Amarius Mims was, oh my gosh, it was clear. Everybody on the field knew what was going on. But when you watched him in high school, he wasn't dogging everybody, but nobody could get around him. So it was a little bit like, even if he had his hand tied behind his back, it didn't feel like, I didn't even feel like it was fair. Because when he would set, his set was so wide, his limbs are so long, you're just not going to get around him. And he is probably... There have been some really good linemen at Georgia lately. Amarius Mims stands a chance to be the most successful in the NFL. And I think that that's what I'll be watching for. Because he's not beat up. He's not, we've seen that he can come back from injury. There's a lot of stuff that Amarius Mims, checks a lot of boxes. I think he's grown up some, although I'm not got as much insight on that sort of stuff as other folks do. And it's pretty clear to me that Amarius Mims is well worth the value of a first round pick. Well worth it. And, Georgia will miss him. They missed him a lot of this past season. Now they moved on because of other players. You have a lot of guys you can go to. You had Freeling, Truss. Those guys were on the outside a lot. Morris, Ratledge, Fairchild on the inside. Green was on the outside. You had a lot of players on this offensive line, and when you needed to, you could go to them. But our first time we saw Marius was, when was this image? 19 or 18. So yeah, so 2000 we saw Marius I think for the first time in 18 when he was going into his sophomore year, and we did a photo shoot with him and so forth. But it was this time here when this was his junior season, so it was 18 when we went to go see him. If I'm not mistaken, it could be a little bit wrong, but it was some time ago, five plus years ago, and I still think he's got a little bit of ways to go. I don't know how far to go, but not a lot, not a lot. I mean, he's raw because he's not played a bunch of snaps, but man, he I mean, I got a lot of friends that like the NFL, like the Steelers or the Falcons or whoever. God bless them if they love the Panthers or somebody like that. And this guy that you can just take and go, this is our guy. This is our guy. We're not going to let him leave. Like, he's going to be, it's a 5-year contract. Year 4, we're going to get him his second deal. We're not letting him touch free agency. If we have to franchise him, we will. We want this protection because there's just not a lot of people like that. There's not a lot of people like that. Now, I don't know what the NFL Combine, I don't know what that will be like for him, and what that will be like in terms of what his workout will be in Athens, because a lot of these guys are choosing to work out in Athens. But like, for instance, the NFL Network has him as a top 20 pick. And this is not a bad draft for offensive tackles, by the way. You had Latham from Bama, Fashanu from Penn State, excuse me. There's a slew of guys that are going, and they're all going to go in the first round. I mean, this is a really good offensive lineman draft, particularly guys on the outside, and Mims is considered a really good one of them. Now, how high up, where he slots, all that stuff, I don't know. No, I think people are just not telling the truth most of the time during all of these procedures. But A.D. Mitchell, clearly, just as an aside, I mean, A.D. was always fun. I think it was one of the few people at Georgia to interview him because he was never made available by Kirby and them. Maybe someone did after the national championship game. I'm not sure. But quiet guy. But A.D. Mitchell definitely, quiet guy to us, but A.D. Mitchell definitely made some money at the Combine on Saturday. No question. He just is too explosive. But I think the measurables are all there with Marius Mims. I think that, this statement is how you go from raw to a first-round draft pick. He always had this potential. I was very fortunate to go to a university where we take pride in preparation. They prepared me for 3 long years. I owe that to them. I was just a big guy relying on my size in high school. They molded me into something different. And I think it will be curious to see where he goes versus his peers in this draft. There's a bunch of offensive tackles. It's a good year for that. So if you are looking for one, it's deep. But I just don't know that there's a lot of guys like Mims out there that have that kind of length. I mean, here's what the NFL Network has to say about Marius Mims. Mims is an enormous right tackle prospect with long arms. Totally true. Has very limited starting experience. 8 total starts at Georgia, partly due to injury. While the resume is light, the skill set is impressive in pass protection. He plays with a firm, wide base and uses his length to control defenders. He stays square and patient. When he does throw his punch, it jolts defenders, making them take a second to recover. He can sink his way against power rushers and doesn't give up ground. He plays with good awareness. In the run game, he can run his feet, and finish. He struggles in space on occasion because he's out of control. That's the part that he's got to get right, y'all. To see him at his best, watch college football playoff game against Ohio State in 22. That was when he was healthy and dominant. He battled through injury in 23. Overall, there's a risk to be because of the limited body of work, but Mims is a unique talent. I'm not sure I could say it better than that last sentence. Overall, there's a risk because of the limited body of work, but Mims is a unique talent. I would not be surprised if he climbs up in the top 15 or so. But we'll just see what happens with Amarius Mims. They molded me into something different. Yes, they did.